This tool allows me to focus on the students, and in understanding and making sure that they're involved and engaged, as opposed to having to dedicate time to the pairing or to dedicate time to ensuring that they're logging their conversations. Those tasks are handled by Mentor Collective, and they're easily accessible for me to see in the tool. And so, what I can really focus on is looking at those conversations. What type of conversations are students having? Looking to see if students are engaged, looking to see if there are trends happening over time. That's where I can dedicate my focus as opposed to more of the, I'm going to say, administrative task of, are students logging conversations? Are they doing those particular tasks? I can really focus on the students themselves.
For me in particular, from the standpoint of the university, I am the go-to for the Mentor Collective program. And so as the facilitator of that, it's really important that I'm able to have one place that I can look to get all of our information, regardless of what time of year it is, whether that's we're working on recruiting mentors for the next cycle, or we're looking at making sure that the folks that we have in our current cycle are fully engaged. And so as the person that's kind of responsible for all of the juggling with our mentorship program, having that one spot where I can kind of really see everything and drill down as fine as I want to is very helpful.
I also go into flags a lot. Flags are a really good tool for me to see what's happening with individual students. If there is a concern that we might need to address for a student, that a mentor's raised a flag, expressed concern, that is something that I will go into when there's a flag that's popped up to route it to an area that can support the student if necessary.
I think I find myself most often using the total conversations logged. It's a helpful overview. It's a quick way for me to look in and see the dynamics of these conversations occurring. But then the dashboard allows you to take deeper dives. So I can further focus on activities and conversations that are occurring. In doing that, I'm able to pick up common themes, common threads, and I'm able to then integrate that potentially into coursework or conversations with students. One feature I love about all of the dashboard is the opportunity to drop to a CSV file. And I've utilized that when we've needed to when I've wanted to pool or get a general feel for continued topics that come up in conversations, or be able to reach out to mentors to be able to share maybe class content and what's happening in the classroom. So that's a feature on the dashboard as well that I utilize quite a bit.
One of the things that I always do is when I log into the dashboard, I'm looking at overall our communication rate among mentors and mentees. And so I kind of always want to see that as a steady incline. And we know that we're going to see that be more prominent at certain times of years. And so, for instance, when you look at academic advising, you know there's going to be more questions that are going to come up. And so we generally see more engagement during that time frame. But one of the other things I think is interesting is I do tend to notice that when we see a bit of a lull, if I use that as an opportunity to send an email to our mentors, send an email to our mentees about whatever it might be, we do tend to see a spike. And so it is something that they're paying attention to. And of course, what's beneficial of that is when they're seeing that email from me, a lot of times that's sparking communication among them, which is what we want. And so I guess that's one way that I would use the data and the dashboard to help drive the program.
Another big push for our institution, and something that our deans and the stakeholders across the university are interested in, are the number of first-generation students that are participating, as well as the amount of diversity students of color that are participating as well. It is something that we're engaging with those students to ensure that they have an additional level of resources from alums that have kind of walked the path to help guide them in their discernment and figuring out maybe what they want to do for a major or career, etc. So those are some of the data points that are of interest to the deans and different stakeholders across the institution.
I'm learning that they have a lot of things on their minds. I'm learning that they may be where our focus is on career, they may be worried about the next job they're going to have, or how they deal with stress, or how they balance a work-life moment. I'm learning that students are thinking broad and students are thinking wide. And in these mentorships, they're able to have those thoughtful conversations. They're able to connect and talk to someone who now they trust and feel comfortable doing that. I know initially conversations start fairly stoic. We ask them to do an informational interview to get to know each other, but deeper as those conversation topics are being recorded on the dashboard, you can tell the content and the depth and the breadth of those conversations are getting deeper and more focused on topics that are very relevant to the students.
I think for me, utilization of the dashboard in thinking about student success is just a reminder that data is important, but it can't be separated from the student voice and the student experience, that we have to combine the two. And so the dashboard and giving me real-time data and real-time insight, I'm able to combine that also with the student voice and the student perspective that it's sharing and that it's gathering. And so being able to I'm going to say marry, maybe that's not the right word, but being able to look at both data as well as student experience, and combining, merging, and finding ways to incorporate both has really helped to shape, further shape, I would say, how I look at student success, because oftentimes we look at student success numerically. GPAs, time to degree, how many courses they've completed, are they on track? We look at those particular numbers, but hearing the student voice as well and seeing how that impacts their GPA, what they're going through and what they're experiencing, how that impacts their time to degree, being able to have both pieces of information is critically important for student success.